Hello. So it's a rare occasion that I actually make my own Sudoku puzzle, but I have recently. It is called Consecutive Entanglement, and it uses a new constraint. So if you want to try it yourself, there is a link in the description to try that. And if you don't understand the rules, I will explain them first. Then I'll go over some general tips for the rules in case you don't quite grok how they work or you want to come back for some general help. And then I'll walk through a solve of the puzzle. So I hope you enjoy it. I'd say it's, just because it's a new constraint, probably 3 out of 5 difficulty. I've had some feedback that it's quite fun and surprising, so hopefully you enjoy it. I'd recommend it for anyone who is at least somewhat familiar with arrow puzzles and then also enjoys figuring out how some new constraints work, especially if you like stuff like non-consecutive, for example. So I will start by explaining the rules. So we have normal Sudoku rules. If you haven't encountered a Sudoku before, this may not be the best one to start with, but feel free. But in a Sudoku, we are placing the digits 1 to 9 exactly once in every single row, every single column, and every single marked 3x3 box. So we end up with 9 of each digit, 1 to 9. And sort of implicit rule in Sudoku, which is definitely true in this puzzle, is there is exactly one possible solution. There's only one way to arrange all the 1s and 9s such that that's true and meets all the other constraints in the puzzle. So you can also arrive at that logically without guessing. So keep that in mind. Feel free to guess if you want, but if you guess wrong, you might not find out for a while with this puzzle. So I recommend having some logical reason you are placing a digit or eliminating a candidate. All right, so first I'll go over the arrows because those are standard. They're completely standard arrows. If you know how arrows work, you will understand this. So basically we have a circle and then we have an arrow coming out of the circle. And digits, whatever digits end up on this, let's say this one here. Let's say the digits 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 4 ended up on this arrow here. We would add them up. That adds to 7. And the sum goes into the circle. So what that means is I couldn't do something like 3, 4, 5 because that adds to 12. And I cannot put 12 into one cell. So that would just be broken immediately. So keep that in mind as well. So that's how all of these arrows work. Digits can repeat on arrows as long as other Sudoku rules allow. So they can't repeat here. But for example, I could put a 1 here and a 1 here if I wanted to. Alrighty. Now the entanglement constraint. This is a global constraint on the entire grid. And the way it reads, the way I've written this rule, is digits must share a row, column, or box with exactly 2 instances of each digit it's consecutive with. So, ignoring all of the other clues on this grid, if I put a 1 here, it is only allowed to see exactly 2 2s. So if I put, say, a 2 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here, well, now it sees all 3 of these, right? The red one sees 3 red 2s because it sees this in the same box, this in the same row, and this 2 in the same column. That is not allowed. You have to see exactly 2. So if we want an example of what works, I could put a 1 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here. And this blue 2 here, this is perfectly fine. This sees a 2 here in its box and its column, so that counts as 1. And it sees a 2 in its row. So that is how that constraint works. Let me give another example here of a 2, because the 2 has 2 different consecutive digits. So what I might do here is a 1 and a 3 like this, and then a 1 over here and a 3 over here. This would be fine. What I can't do is do something like put a 3 here and a 3 here, because now this 2 sees 3 copies of the consecutive digit 3. That's not allowed. So that is the entanglement constraint. It is definitely intended for you to think about that constraint a little bit and what it means before you get started. And that's what this next section will be about. So let's talk about the consecutive entanglement constraint here a little bit. So the first thing that probably most people will realize pretty quickly is that means that even if just looking at my examples of how it might work, wherever I place some digit, say 2, its consecutive digits must share either row box or column box with it within the box. So within the box, I need a 1 and a 3 in the same row or column. If I put a 1 over here, when I eventually finish the Sudoku, I'm going to end up with another 1 in the column and another 1 in the row that won't share the box. Can't be this one. And I'm going to end up seeing 3 of them. So I cannot put any 1s or 3s in these cells. So you could, if you wanted, you could good lift this as 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because the 2 here says, well, the 2 is eliminated from the box, and 1 and 3 have to be somewhere in these cells. So that would be kind of my first tip. My second tip would be to utilize kind of non-consecutive logic here. So for example, if I have limited this cell here to either a 1 or a 3, where can I put the 2? Well, the answer is I can never put the 2 in these cells. So just like, because even if I put a 1 or a 3 here, no matter what that ends up being, the 2 must be sharing a row or column with it within the box. So I can't put a 2 here. That's immediately broken. Similarly, if I put a 1, 2 here, that eliminates both 1 and 2 from these cells. Because if this is a 1, these can't be 1s or 2s. And if this is a 2, these can't be 1s or 2s. Because of the consecutive and also just normal Sudoku. The other thing we can do is we can say, hey, let's say I limited 1 somehow to these 2 cells in the box. Well, you can say that 2 has to be somewhere in these cells somewhere. Basically, it can't be in these 2 cells. Because if I put a 2 over here, wherever the 1 ends up being, it will not be sharing a row or column with the 2. So, may seem obvious, but it's good to point out. This sort of thing can happen, by the way, in situations like this, where I have a 1, 2, 3 triple in the row, but 1 has been limited to the box. So because 1's in one of those 2, I cannot put a 2 in either of these spots. That would be broken. Alrighty. The final thing that I'll talk about is kind of a way to think about a box in general, is you need to be able to trace a path from the 1 to the 9 without ever going diagonally. So for example, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now this is guaranteed to fulfill my constraint because I have moved through the box, never moving diagonally. If I ever do something like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, I've just broken it, right? Because the 3 has to be consecutive with the 2. So hopefully with those, it'll be a bit smoother to get through the solve. And now I'm just going to do a straight up walkthrough. So hope you enjoy it. All right, so I think the obvious place, anyone who's done an arrow puzzle before sees an obvious place to start, which is this cell has to be a 9. What is the minimum here? A 1, 2 pair. The minimum here is a 1, 2, 3 triple. That's 6 plus 3, that is 9. 9 is the maximum you can fill in a cell, so that's going to be a 9. And so now if we look over here, what is the minimum this can be? Well, this could be 1, 2, and this could be 1, 2. That adds up to 6 in total. 3 plus 3. So this is minimum 6, and it can't exceed 8. So we have 2 degrees of freedom here. So this can be a 3 or a 4. This can be a 3 or a 4. Okay, so the next thing to think about, there's a few things you can do, but I think that the most useful thing to think about here is in box 1, where does the 8 go? And so the 8 obviously cannot go on this arrow, because if I put an 8 on this arrow, I'd have to put a 1 with it, but the 1, 2 pair takes care of that. And also the 8 has to be next to the 9. Again, we can't put an 8 in any of these 4 cells because of the entanglement rule. And so the 8's going to be down here somewhere. We're going to have 8 down here. And so now the question to ask is, where does the 7 go? And so the 7 is still can't go on here because we can't pair it with a 2 or a 1. And so the 7 also can't go up here just because of the entanglement rule. So the 7 is either going to be here with the 8s, or it's going to be over here in column 3. So next thing to ask is, where does the 3 go? Well, we have this 1, 2, 3 triple looking up. And the 3 needs to see the 2, so it can't go here. So the 3 is going to be in one of these 3 cells. And so the question then actually becomes, what can this cell really be? Because I guess you could probably ask, where can I put the 4? Or you can ask what this cell can be. But the reality is, this cell can't be a 4, right? Because if it was a 4, the 3 is forced over here. But that is not sharing a row or column with the 4 in the box. So that wouldn't work. So the 4 is actually going to have to go either here with the 3s or here in this spot. And so this cell could be a 3. It can't be a 4. If it was a 5, I would do 5 with a 4 here. and that would force a 9 here. So that is a possibility. So it's 3 or 5, but we can't be any bigger than 5 because as soon as we're 6, this cell would have to be a 3 or lower, and it can't be because the 3s are in these cells. So 3 or 5 only. But remember our non-consecutive rule here. If this is a 3 or a 5, where can the 4 go? Well, most importantly, it can't go in any of these cells. So we can remove the 4 from these two here, and that places the 4 in the box right here. So now the 4 sees the 3. Now it also needs to see the 5. So where does the 5 go? The 5 is going to have to share a row column with the 4. So we have 5s also in here. All right, so the next thing to look at is whether this can actually be a 5. So if I put a 5 here, the 4 is fulfilled, that's fine, but where does 6 go? 6 has to share a row column with the 5, and it just can't. So it actually can't be a 5, so it must be a 3. So now we can just fill a 7 in this arrow here, and that removes the 3 corner marks here, removes the 7s from here. And now the 5 has to be down here. So we can kind of stencil in the 4 needs to see a 5 down here. The 5 is going to have to see a 6, which looks like could go anywhere. But then the 6 needs to see a 7, which can only go down here, and then the 8 can only go over here. So now, if you remember the non-consecutive trick here, I've got a 5, 6 here, which means that 5 and 6 cannot go here. Because either this is a 5, in which case it needs to share the row column with the 6, or it's a 6, in which case the 6 gets eliminated. So this one cannot be a 6. And now this is a 7, 8, but that's fine. That they just kind of bounce back and forth, and they're fine. But the 6, 8 here says that this can't be a 7, because 6, 8 must always, no matter what it is, must be sharing a row column with the 7, and so the 7 does not go here. And so now we have a 5, 6 pair, and that resolves the 8 and the 7. And the 7 now needs to see a 6, and that resolves the 5, 6 pair. This 1, 2 can't be resolved yet, but we have a lot of progress, and let's just let it flow. We got this 7 in box 2. Maybe we can do something with box 2. So the first question to ask is, the 7's got to see an 8. Where's that 8 going to go? Well, it can only go in one of two places, one of these two. Now, can this really be an 8? Let's investigate. If this was 8, how are we adding to 8? Well, I can't do 1, 7. I could do 2, 6. I can't do 3, 5. So it'd only be 2, 6. And so, but the problem is the 7 needs to see the 6 as well, and the 6 can't actually go up here. So there's no way to actually add to 8. Hopefully that's not too hard to see, but that does place the 8 here. And now we need to place a 9. So the 9's either down here or this is 9, but the 9 here prevents that. So 9 is definitely going to be down here in one of these two spots. Now the question is, where does 6 go? Well, we could do 1, 6 over here, or this could be a 6, but how would we actually add to 6? So if this was a 6, then I could not do, I could do 1, 5, but I could not do 1, 4. So it would have to be 6, 1, 5. And so, but what about here? Could this be 1, 6? If this was 1, 6, we kind of run into a little bit of an issue, because now the 6 needs to see a 5, but we can't put the 5 up here, because the 5 up here would require this to add to something higher than 5, but 6, 7, 8, 9 are used. And so the 5 would go down here with the 9, and now that's completely used up. The 5, 9, we can't fit more digits down there. And now where would the 4 go? Well, the 4 would have to, well, it can go nowhere, right? Because there's a 4 here. So hopefully that's pretty clear that at least at that point it breaks. So the 6 has only one place to go, which is here. We know there's only one way to add to 6, which is 1, 5. Let's just pick a direction for the 1, 5 just to see how that works out. Because the 1 needs to see a 2, but the 2 cannot go with the 7 because it would be 2, 5. So the 2 goes down here. That forces the 9 here. The 2 needs to see a 3. There's only one place for that. And then this is the final digit of 4. So we can do a path. We can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That does follow a nice path in our box, so that is a correct way to do it. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, or 5, 4, 9. So I can make this a 1, 5. I can make this a 3, 4. And I can make this a 2, 9. And then the same thing here. And so we know this is a 2, 9 pair. That actually does resolve the 1, 2 now. This is not a 1. This is not a 2. And this was not a 6 because of the work we did earlier. But the next obvious thing we can do here is remember the 1, 2, 3 went together. So if we actually did them here, what the heck would this be, right? 1, 2, and 3 are gone. This would be 4, 5, 6, which is 15. You can't put 15 in a circle. That's so broken. So actually we have to put the 5 here and the 1 here. And so that's 2, 3, and that's 4, 9. And that box is completely done. That's now a naked single 1. And we are making some good progress here. So let's just fill out some pencil marks here in box 3. So we need a 2, 7, 8 up here. Here we need a pair. We need a, 6 and 9. And then down here we have 1, 2. We need 3, 4, and 5. So the 2 being in one of these two means the 3 cannot be here. This is now a 4, 5. So let's see if that eliminates anything. So from these we couldn't be a 4 or 5. That's fine. I think that might be all we can do at the moment. I might be missing something there, but that's okay. We'll get back to it. So the next thing to look at is this arrow here. It's pretty easy to prove it must have a 1. If it doesn't, then it would be 2, 3. Must have a 1 and a 2. Because 2, 3, 6 adds to way too much. 4 and 5 are gone. So it always has a 1 and a 2 on it. And so, or actually I should say 1, 3, 6 is too much already. So what is this going to add to? Well, it's going to be either 1, 2 with a 3 adding to 6, or it's going to be 1, 2 with a 6, because we can't use 4 or 5, adding to 9. So that's a 6 or a 9. We have a 1 or a 2 here, 1 and a 2 here with a 3 or a 6. So the next question to ask is, where do 7 and 8 go in the box? Well, these 7, 8s look down. None of these can be 7 or 8, so this is a 7, 8 pair. And then here we can fill out, we can't be 1, 2, so we could be a 3, 4, 5, we could be a 6, or we can't be 6 actually, because of the 6 up here. We can't be 7 or 8, we could be 9. But the 7, 8 pair here does mean that one of these is 8. And so this is really powerful having this 7, 8 pair here, because it means that 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all eliminated from these two cells. So this can't be 6 and this can't be 9. Alrighty. The next thing is to look at this arrow here. You could have done this earlier, but we removed 2 from being possible on here at some point. And so the key is to realize that this is now minimum 4. So this is maximum 4. So 4 is removed from these, and we must use a 1, because 2, 3 would add to 5, and 5 plus 4 is 9. We cannot be 9. So there is a 1 in one of these. So now the question is, where can 2 actually go in this box? Let's pick somewhere for 2, anywhere. First of all, this is obviously bad. The ones here obviously limit 2 to these cells here. But what happens if I put a 2 over here? Well, that means these aren't 2. But now this is a 1, 3, which eliminates 2s from here. So that doesn't work. So 2 must be in this column somewhere. So 1 and 2 are off of this arrow entirely. So that's a good thing to notice, which means that it is minimum 3, 4, which means that this has to be at least 7. So this is 7, 8, or 9. All right, so because this is 7, 8, or 9, we can't put 1 or 2 because they're over here. We can't put 1 or 2 on here. So these are from 3, 4, 5, 6. And something I did not mention earlier is we can actually do more in box 3, which I just now remembered how. So this 1 here does eliminate 2 from here. That leaves only 1 spot for the 2, which is right there. And now the 2 has to see a 3. There's only 1 place for the 3, which is right there. So that does eliminate 3 from here, which eliminates 6 from here. All right, so the next thing to look at is this, this stack here, the first stack. Because we put 1, 2, 3 here and 1, 2, 3 here, and that causes roping. If you're not familiar with roping, it's very easy to prove what's required anyway. It's just kind of a shorthand. But it means we have the same triples vertically or horizontally, depending on if we're talking about the stack or the band. So where do 1, 2, 3 go in this box? They go here. Now, how do we finish this column? Well, we'll do 7, 8, 9. Now where do 4, 5, 6 go in this box? This needs to be 7, 8, 9. This needs to be 4, 5, 6. So we do end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 as triples in all 3 of these boxes. That was forced as soon as we had the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 here. So this obviously can't be 9. This can't be 7. This can't be 3, just for the arrow. The 3s here mean this can't be 4. which is just a little fun little thing. But you can't do much more with that. But what this did do is it put 789 in this cell. And so now we have a 789 triple here, which I'm actually going to highlight. So this green triple does some interesting things. First of all, it means these two cells cannot be 789. So let's look at what cells can actually be 789 in this box. And if you look, none of these can be 789 because the triple takes them out of here, and these are just labeled as not 789. And so these must be 789. And so now if we think about how, all this works, think about this 789 here. Where can 8 go? And, 8 could go here, in which case it's there. Or this is a 7-9, and in either case, this cannot be an 8. So the 8 is not here. The 8's limited to one of these two. Additionally, we can do something similar now with this 7-9, where basically the 8's got to be in between the 7 and 9, right? So that's what's going to end up happening. But this 7-9 eliminates 8 from here, makes a 7-9 pair, places this 8. So this is not an 8 now. And so with that 8 placed, we have the 7-9 pair, but it also finishes this up, right? So we have the 7 here, we have the 8 here. This is now not a 2, it's a 1-3 pair in order to add the 8. 4 plus 4. This is now the 2. This now has to be a 9. That's a 7. That's a 6. That's a 9. 6 has to see 5. That's a 4. This is not a 5. So that means that's not a 4, because we do need to add to 9 now. Let's clean up all these red markings here. So none of these are 9s. That's not a 2. We can now place the 9 here. This is not a 9. This means that the 6 can't go here. And in fact, the 6 does go here. And so now this is a 1-2-3 triple. Lots of stuff resolving. The 1-2-3 triple means none of these are 3s. 4-5 pair places a 9 here. Additionally, the 6 needs to see a 5. Where is it going to get that? Only here. That places a 4 here, 4 here. These are not 4s. And the 4 needs to see a 3. There's only one place for it. That's a 3. That makes that 1 and 3. This is 2, 1 and 3. This is now 4, and 4 plus 5 is 9. And now this is a 6. This is 5 and 6. This is 2 and 1. Alrighty. And now this 9 needs to see an 8, and that resolves this seemingly deadly pattern. And we have the first 2 bands complete. So we move on to the next band. Alright, so obviously the first thing to do is we do notice that we have more roping. So 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8. So this is 6, 7, 8. Oops, I typed too many numbers. This is 6, 7, 8. This is 1, 2, 3. And this is 4, 5, 9. And then this is also roped. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is 1, 2, 3. This one is 4, 8, 9. And this one is 6, 5, 7. All right. So this arrow is an obvious place to look. The absolute minimum we could add to is 4 plus 5. So that's what we're going to do. And that adds to 9. That's an 8. These are not 5s. 8 needs to see the 7. It can only see it there. That sees a 6. This is now a 6. We can just, follow our red markings at this point. That's a 9. That's a 6, 5. 8 is 7 plus 1. These are not 1s. Let's see. We got 8 and 7. We got 4. 4 needs to see 5. 4 needs to see 3 as well. So that's the 3. This is a 4 that needs to see a 3 and a 2 there. That's a 1. That's 2. 1, 3, and 2. And we have finished with the correct solution, luckily. All right, so obviously I did that pretty quickly because I knew how to get through it, but how'd you do? Hopefully you enjoyed the process, and it's super fun how you get a little deduction and then just a whole thing collapses because there's only one way that it works out. So I hope you enjoyed that. There's probably other ways to approach the puzzle, but I hopefully hit the key deductions and maybe got you unstuck if you were stuck. And I'd love to see if anyone else, uses this constraint to construct something interesting. I think it pairs well with some other constraints. I chose arrows because I wanted to see how arrows could kind of restrict how you would path the digits in a box, and how the 9 here would prevent the 8 from being on its own arrow, for example, things like that. I'm not sure how much of that ended up being used, but I still enjoy the puzzle. And so hope you enjoyed it too. And I will see you next time.